Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate Rural Talk Radio, where our mantra is educate, enlighten, and entertain. I am excited to have with me today a phenomenal guest. All my guests are phenomenal. But my guest today, I think, is brave and courageous. And my guest is Natasha Lance Rogoff. She is an award-winning American television producer, filmmaker, and journalist who has produced news and documentaries in Russia, Ukraine, and the former Soviet Union for CBS, NBC, ABC, and PBS. Natasha produces content for television and digital platforms and is the CEO of an ed tech company. Natasha Lance Rogoff is also an associate fellow in Harvard University's Art, Film, and Visual Studies program. And I want to welcome, oh, wait a minute, I forgot the name of the book. See, my brain does go ahead of my mouth. Natasha's author and writer of Muppets in Moscow, the unexpected, crazy true story of making Sesame Street in Russia. And it is quite a story, folks. And I want to welcome Natasha Lance Rogoff to Chatting with Betsy.
Well done, Betsy. Thank you so much for that overly generous intro.
Oh, you are welcome. My pleasure. I'll tell you, Natasha, I read this book. I was just like admired you so much for what you went through in making of this and how long it took. But before I forget what I want to ask, I ask all the authors of what inspired you to write this wonderful book.
I think it was after Trump was elected, and I went back to back to Russia in about 2016, and I started interviewing young people, mostly millennials, and realizing how effective Putin's control was, with taking over the media, independent media, the power of propaganda. And I was incredibly, irritated and wanted to initially, make this film that was called, Hey Trump, Putin is not your bro. And it's on YouTube, and it's called Russian Millennials Speak Openly About America. And I ended up putting it up, on YouTube, and it just ended up getting hundreds, now more than 1.5 million views. And I guess I was, feeling that we had a very poor understanding of Russia as a country, the people, as a culture, and also nearly every program on Netflix and Amazon, created caricatures of Russians, such as they were all criminals, prostitutes, thugs, oligarchs. And this didn't ring true to the, incredibly passionate and, quite brilliant artists that I had worked with making Sesame Street in the mid-1990s. And these people were themselves, committed to creating a different society for their country, a more open society. And I felt that story wasn't being told. It was just lost, as if it never happened. And so I had wanted to write this story for, more than 30 years. So I think it was the impetus of seeing seeing this lack of understanding of ordinary Russians, of people that I worked with, and I just wanted to tell their stories. So that was the impetus, and I also thought it was an incredibly remarkable story, as you said.
Yes.
And it was thrilling. I felt like, oh my God! I mean, if you think about what we went through as a team, people tell me now, oh, this reads like a thriller. It just moves so fast. And it did at the time. I mean, we were there for, I was there for 5 years and trying to make, bring the Muppets to Moscow. I mean, you don't think it's going to take that long or that you're going to face the kind of challenges we did, with people getting assassinated or cars blown up. And, it's not really like, oh, I'm going to go make a children's television show in Moscow. And you think that's what is going to happen,
Yes. I couldn't put the book down. As I'm reading the book, I'm like, is this woman brave or is she crazy? Or is she both? I mean, I was in such awe of you. I mean, to be honest, that's what I thought. That's what I thought, Natasha. I mean, I just was like, folks, I don't really want to like give away a lot because I want the audience to read this book because, folks, I think this book should be made a movie. I really do. And when you read this book, your heart does go for the Russian people and the people, in the Ukraine, the various areas over there. And what you face with, after the first car assassination, I think I would have been out. But you guys, you hung in there 5 years.
Well, yeah, but Betsy, I had been working in Russia before that for the previous decade. I mean, I spoke Russian. I was, I witnessed and actually, was there during the coup of 1991 when the Soviet Union fell, and I made a film about it, which is called Russia for Sale, which was on PBS television, and just the feeling at that moment of the Soviet Union collapsing after 70 years of communism. This was a moment in history. I mean, you really felt at the time that you were part of something that was a moment, just this incredible moment. So when the opportunity came to make Sesame Street in Russia, it was a continuation of that feeling of incredible hope that so many people had at the time, not only just Westerners who evangelized the market economy and for many saw the collapsed Soviet Union as a market ready, full of people to buy products, but there were so many people over there with good intentions who were trying to work in the areas of education and provide young children, and adults with the skills that they would need to thrive in a more open society. So I think there were, many people there with different objectives, and what we were doing was, incredibly positive, and also in collaboration with a 99% Moscow team of people who are from there. So we weren't importing a show; we were creating a show with our local colleagues.
You know what I didn't know, Natasha, until I read your book, is that I didn't know that the Muppets, when they went to another country, especially where you were in Russia, that you had to change the whole show, like different characters, and there's certain things that, weren't accepted to be shown, which in the U.S., you would think nothing of it. And you also did one for Mexico. And I just thought that, okay, when the Muppets were shown, they were shown as is all over. Like what we see in the States, I thought that's what they saw, in other parts of the country. So your book was a real eye-opener for me. And I also, it really was. And I also felt, this might think of a little boo-boo, I just could feel your energy and your love for the people there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
worked there. You were over there for a decade. You changed your name when you were younger to Natasha because you loved the Russian culture and the history and the literature so much. And that really shows through. I'd like for you to tell the audience, how did you become so interested and immersed with Russia and the people?
My grandfather left Belarusia in around 1912 and came to Germany and then immigrated to the U.S. So, I mean, I knew him, Nathan Rosnick, and, he had an accent, and it was always very intriguing to me. And then in high school, I started reading Russian literature and just fell in love. I mean, I felt like, this, incredibly mysterious and, somewhat cruel, world that was very different from the world that I lived in. And I took a deep dive into reading that, and then, became interested in politics and, different communist systems as well as dictatorships, and eventually wanted to go and see the evil empire. This was during the Reagan era, and I wanted to see it for myself, not only because it was the homeland of my ancestors, but also because of the pull of the culture, the literature. I think it was stories that really I wanted to experience myself there.
I thought that was so cool. And what did your parents think when you wanted to change your name to Natasha?
They were not very happy. My brothers and sisters are Andy, Emily, Stephen, and Kate. We're five children, and no, it didn't quite fit. But this, as I said again, this was the 1970s, so everything was up for grabs, and they really couldn't stop me. I worked at New York Psychiatric Hospital, cleaning bedpans. I made some money, and I was pretty much ready to leave the United States and explore other cultures, from age 16, which I did. So I don't know. They were. My mom in particular was incredible, because so many, think about this as it's Women's History Month, and
right.
It should be Women's History Year every year, but she didn't have the same opportunities. She was a journalist. She covered the civil rights movement, and then once she got married, left that job and had 5 children. But I always sensed that she was very encouraging, and even though she thought, her kid's a little wild, I just sensed that she was giving me a pass and saying, go forth, young woman, and see what you find. And I wish she were alive to know now that I, wrote this book, but she actually died of cancer quite young.
Oh, sorry. But I'm sure that your mom knows somehow, and and is smiling upon you. And I hope your mom's memory is remains a blessing to you and others. My great grandfather's name was Nathan, who came from, like I was telling you earlier, around Kiev. Actually a small town, Winograd, but that was the closest. And he was in the fishing business. He had a fish store. And but I was so I would get so excited, like reading your book, and so many challenges that you had of the person who was bankrolling it didn't have the money. People coming in with AK-47s. car bombings. How did you deal with all that and remain sane?
It was very, very difficult, and there were moments when, I really thought, okay, that's it, I'm done. Particularly after one of our Russian television partners was assassinated, and he was such a lovely man. I mean, he was someone who was, incredibly helpful to us, generous, was trying to change their country and, create a free press through his programming at the Russian TV station, the same TV station where Putin disseminates his propaganda today across Russia. And he had his own program. He was a TV host. His name is Vlad. And after he was murdered, I really, questioned whether it was possible, for Russia to change. And, so many things like that happened. One other partner was also murdered, 9 months later. So, these are like punches in the stomach. It's like you're just moving, you're trying to make this children's television show, and you're working with a team of people that, had not worked together. We had assembled the team from both the state TV station, which was formerly communist and as I say, state-owned, as well as all these new independent artists who had never had the opportunity to work for state television, many of which had been persecuted under communism, like a lot of the musicians that we worked with. And the whole idea, at least this was my vision, that, by bringing all these people together, that we would be creating a new infrastructure that would help build an independent, free television group, that would then have skills to move forward as Russia opened up and, tried to create new types of programming. So that was the goal. And I just had to keep reminding myself, when I had these moments of doubt, what the impact of the show could be in this country. And I also thought this was, a phenomenal, unique opportunity that came up. And, as in many things in my life, I didn't exactly choose a straight and narrow path. And like many Russians, I was more fatalistic. And I felt like this was the path I was supposed to follow. And, I'm going to go do this. And, of course, as I said before, I had an incredible team of many of the top cinematographers, producers, animators. We just collected, a wonderful team. And many of them were working without getting paid. That's how committed they were. We did not have, as you alluded to before, there were many financial challenges, and many of these people, they agreed to work, in exchange for a promise of payment later, because they were so committed to creating a children's show for their country and for the new independent countries like Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia, that they made tremendous sacrifices. And I think about that now today and speaking with them on WhatsApp and hearing, what they're saying about the war and how horrified they are by their own regime. So, it's very sad to think about where we were, 30 years ago and where we are today.
Yes. It seems like history is repeating itself. I had to ask you because I forgot earlier. Did Jim Henson approach you, the company, Sesame Street?
Sesame Street at that time was made by the nonprofit company Children's Television Workshop, and today it's called SESAME Workshop, also a nonprofit. And at the time that I was hired, Jim had just passed away, so I never met him. I was very close to Cheryl Henson, his daughter, who also spoke some Russian. She had studied Russian at Yale University. And she was very instrumental in helping the puppeteers when we were auditioning for them and training them. But I did not meet her father. I'm sad about that. He was a great man.
Yes, I remember. He had pneumonia, if I remember correctly. He died pretty quick. It was Jim Henson, someone else who was a celebrity, died around like the same time. I can't think of who the other person was. But, yeah, I was heartbroken when Jim Henson passed away. And I was wondering, what's going to happen to Sesame Street, because I have to admit, folks, I love Sesame Street. I watched it with my son. We went to the ice shows, watched the Muppet movies. And, excuse me, I really enjoyed their show. I was really touched in reading your book about, what we think is okay socially in the U.S. is in other countries. And I was really, I guess I was surprised, like even showing a lemonade stand and children selling lemonade wasn't accepted. They looked at it as maybe, like that, or showing a child that's in a wheelchair with a disability. That was mind-blowing.
There were so many, disagreements which really colored, nearly every aspect of the production, from, the show's educational content to the script writing to the design of the neighborhood, the set and even the Muppets themselves. I mean, This wasn't surprising, though, because, we were introducing ideas to the country that were very different. And, the discussion where we this was called the curriculum seminar, where the creative team comes together with education experts from the country, from all over the former Soviet Union. We had multiple generations. So often there were generational clashes between, what the younger writers or artists wanted versus the older generation that was, often more resistant to change. I mean, this would have happened in any country, I think, because they had lived under a different system for 70 years. And it was also a period of incredible instability and turmoil for ordinary Russians just after their country's government collapsed, because they were transitioning to a new system. And the government in power at the time was fairly weak. And this is when you had the beginning rise of all these oligarchs. And it was also a period where it was difficult to get food. You had incredible inflation and devaluation of the ruble. So, people who were trying to take care of themselves and their older parents, found it very difficult. And the healthcare system was also in shambles. So it was into this environment that we were trying to build something new and create something beautiful.
That, from reading your book, I know faced many challenges, and I had to touch about your own personal life, of what you were going through at the time. You met someone, you got engaged, you got married, and that had to be hard in your relationship, traveling back and forth to Russia.
Yes, and I was pregnant.
And pregnant, yes.
I thought, okay, this isn't challenging enough. Let's layer on pregnancy. No, I was pretty naive, I would say, at that point, about what it takes to have children and to be in a relationship. And I had I'm still married to the same man. He was incredibly supportive and just so sweet during this time. I don't know if I would have had the same patience with myself.
That's what was also touching, because I'm thinking, what a supportive man you married. Like he planned the wedding, and you were called during your honeymoon about a crisis, and
yes.
just handling all that. And then you became pregnant, and then you didn't tell anyone until you were a few months pregnant. So are you told that you were able to hide it? Because I'm short, and there was no way I was able to hide it.
5 months. I made it to 5 months without telling my my bosses, and it's kind of ridiculous now thinking about like that I was at all worried about saying that. And also, Sesame Street is one of the most progressive companies. It wasn't a problem when I told them, and it wouldn't have been a problem if I told them earlier. But, I had never been pregnant before, and this was a different time when, there were greater challenges with, the fact that there were at that point almost no women in positions of power. That's not the case now, but we're still dealing with a lot of the same issues of harassment. So, I just I do see change, though, change that is positive as my grown daughter, moves into the work world, and so I'm encouraged by that.
Yes, back then, pregnancy was considered, I guess, to male employees, an inconvenience. Oh, you're pregnant, so now you'll be out on leave, or you're going to leave the workplace. And it was a totally, different time. And I'm glad that women are getting more recognition, getting more job offers. And I have to ask you this, Natasha. Did your children read your book, and what do they think? If they read the book, what do they think of their mom?
They're very proud of their mom.
I would be too.
They're both. They've both been incredibly, just incredible. And each of them have. I have a son and a daughter, and they each joined me on the road when I was doing the book tour during various sections, and we had a blast together. And there's already some interest in adapting the book for television, for a fictional TV series, and so hopefully they'll be part of that too. I mean, it's really been a family effort, and my husband was incredibly supportive at the beginning of our marriage, and he's been an absolute angel during the writing of this book, which took more than 2 years and was absolutely challenging too. As a first-time writer, had to learn how to write a book, and it was my husband is an economist, and he writes a different kind of book, so I was very thankful for Mary Carr and the book Save the Cat I used. I mean, so many books were about writing, were critical to my being able to do this.
Well, I'm glad that everything, worked out. And if my mom did what you did and wrote a book, I would be really proud. I'd probably be going around bragging. Guess what my mom did and who she is. Such, a legacy, really, that you have passed on. I'm sure you've encouraged your children. Go for what you want.
So. Yeah. And they know that, just as when we were making Sesame Street, I created a team with a majority of women in key technical positions because I could. and that was a real goal of mine, when I was working in Russia. And so, now in their work lives, they have female bosses, and that's so great. But I have to say, when you say they're proud of their mom, they are proud, but they also think their mom's a little crazy, and so that's it's a double-edged sword. So
yeah, that's that's not unusual
right.
for children to think that. I asked my son, Josh, I go, what do you think of your mom? Talking on internet radio. And he goes, that as long as you like it, that's what he tells me. Well, as long as you like it.
You don't talk about me.
Yeah. He doesn't mind if I bring them up. I usually tell him, that that I bring them up, and I have interviewed him a couple of times, but I think it's cool. I have to plug New Jersey here, folks, and I live in New Jersey. That Natasha got married in New Jersey, so I thought that was
there for a while. Yeah.
Did you live down by Princeton?
Yeah. My husband taught at Princeton, and we lived not far from there. And then we were there until we moved to London, where we were for a while after that, and then we moved again because my husband's an academic, so we moved a bit in the early years.
That's that is just cool. I mean, just you had a wonderful, exciting life, that's for sure, and I know it's going to continue to be wonderful and exciting. I think the process, can you talk about the process of how you picked out the children and the people who play the characters? That had to be quite an experience.
I mean, it was this was during the auditions for Ulitsa Sezam, which means Sesame Street in Russian, and the chief director, Volodya Gramatikov, he invited about 650 children to audition for the various parts, and our goal was to hire a very diverse cast of children that represented various nationalities, because the Soviet Union was breaking apart, and civil war was essentially de rigueur, what was happening at the time. I mean, you had different parts of the Soviet Union that were splitting off and becoming independent countries. So we felt it was important to have this representation. And then the children came into a room. The auditions were held at Gorky Film Studios, which was a dark studio, meaning that no production was really going on at the time because there was no funding from the state government to pay for production, which they had done previously. So we rented a room there, and the children were all waiting in one room, and then the audition room was some doors down. So none of the children could hear each other when they were doing their performance for the audition. And so when the first boy came, and Volodya told me to wait and sit in the back, and he was leading the session. And the first child came in, a little boy, who was about 11 years old, and he said he wanted to stand. And then he started singing a song where his voice dropped several octaves. And he sang a song from World War II, which went something like, "The planet is burning, everything is covered in smoke, all is lost."
Oh my.
I listened to this and I thought, okay, this is very weird for a, children's comedy show audition. And I just thought, okay. Then the next little girl came in, the other boy left, and then she came in, and she also sang a song from World War II. And it was called A Little Kate, which is about a woman bidding her lover as he goes off to the front. So this went on like this in the morning, and finally at lunchtime I was apoplectic because the songs were so morose, and I was thinking, wow, this is very strange for children to be singing these songs. And the chief director of Elodie, he said, Natasha, you don't understand. You think of these songs as sad. They're not sad. They're lyrical. And I was asking him, well, aren't there any more upbeat songs like, Itsy Bitsy Spider or Old MacDonald Had a Farm? And he says, you need to realize that our children, listen to music like this, and they read poetry, and they expect sadness in their poetry and in their lives. And this was a really profound moment for me. I write about this in the book. It goes on to talk more about this. But it was really an eye-opener for me about how differently cultures can see happiness and sadness.
Yes.
And I guess that's all I'll say about it, but it was a very moment.
That's true. It's just like, when want to show children selling lemonade, and they're like, no, that's not, accepted.
Yeah, well, that was when we were, because we were trying to come up with ways to write scenarios that would model a more open economy versus a command economy. Command economy being, where everything is owned by the state and people work for the state. So there was no independent commerce. And, when at one point I had suggested maybe doing a scenario on a lemonade stand where children are running a lemonade stand, because then they could, this builds, a sense of what it means to be a team, and, shows how you can be an entrepreneur, for little kids. And my Russian colleagues were horrified by this idea. And then one quickly said, the only people who are selling things on the streets in Moscow are criminals and mafia. And of course they were right, because that is the way it was for, so many years before that and in their lifetime. So their reaction was natural, and I should have been more sensitive at the time. But I was, trying to come up with examples, thinking about, how do our children in America learn about, market, how a market works. And in any case, later they came up with other ways of doing the same thing that were more culturally in tune with their own society.
I just think the story is wonderful. It is exciting, folks. And I told Natasha before I spoke, before I recorded, I'm just going to say this as part of the interview, because it is International Women's Month. I applaud you, Natasha Lance Rogoff, for all that you have done, for writing this book, for caring so much about the children in the Soviet Union and other parts over there, to bring Sesame Street over there, really at the risk of your own life. You need to be applauded. So I applaud you.
Well, I if you don't mind, I extend those applause to all the people who worked on the show, over 400 people, and, all the incredible, incredibly talented people at Sesame Workshop who were part of it, from, the development to the training of the puppeteers, to the business side of everything. I mean, it was a remarkable project, supported in part by the U.S. government, by then Senator Biden, as well as our co-workers in Russia. And I just hope that we have the chance to do something like this again, and this war will end, as all wars do, and I believe we will have that chance again. And I also think about how many of the young people today who walked out of Russia, who don't want to be part of the war, they don't want to fight, they don't support the war. They grew up on Sesame Street, on Russian Sesame Street, and it's the same for those young people fighting in Ukraine for their own continued independence from the Kremlin. And they also grew up on Ulitsa Sezam. So I think that's Sesame Street's legacy in that part of the world.
That is so awesome. It almost makes me teary-eyed and verklempt, because it's such a wonderful legacy that these children had the chance to see Sesame Street in their own culture and language, and it brought hope to them, and gave them different ideas about their culture. And I know that it took like 5 years, like 4 or 5 years, right, to get the show up and going. How long, I don't remember, how long did the show run for?
Ulitsa Sezam ran for about 10 years.
Wow.
And, well into Putin's era. And it was broadcast across 11 time zones to Russia, Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia. So it impacted multiple generations. And around the world, I continue to meet people, young people, who are now in their 20s and 30s, who, will still recite songs from Ulitsa Sezam or tell me what are their favorite episodes. So it plays a role in their own different countries, much in the same way that Sesame Street is an icon in the United States.
That's incredible. It really is. Folks, I just want to encourage you to get this book, Muppets in Moscow, The Unexpected Crazy True Story of Making Sesame Street in Russia. And I love the cover of the book because it's red. I like red. And I just want to ask you, Natasha, where can people reach you, your website, to connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Betsy. Best place is my website, which is my name, just NatashaLanceRogoff.com. And there's an email to reach out to me with any questions. And thank you so much, Betsy, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to have you on. And your book is available on Amazon. And check local bookstores? Yes, local bookstores. And on the website, too, there's a list of everywhere you can get the audiobook, on Audibles, but also at half the price on other platforms. And I love the audiobook. I did not narrate it. A incredibly talented woman who is a Russian immigrant, Emily Leahy-Shuv, did the narration. And so it's on Apple Books and Spotify at half price. That's amazing. That is amazing. And I hope, Natasha, that this book will be made into TV series. I hope it's made into a motion picture. There's a lot of people I tell that I read their books. I mean, I've read many books from different, authors, because I do interview, and there's so many books that need to be made into movies, and yours is one of them. And
Thank you.
Just a fascinating book. Folks, I don't like to give away all the story in the book because I want you to read it, and I really think that when you read it, it will make an impact. My son read it. Josh is 38. He grew up with the Muppets here in America, and he really enjoyed reading the book. So I just think it's a wonderful story. It's an inspiring story, and I just admire you, Natasha, for all the work that you've done and your team. Kudos, and wish you, the best in your future endeavors. What's your next book going to be about?
Thank you so much. I'm not ready to talk about it just yet. I'm still doing so much work with this one. But this was great talking to you, Betsy. I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much. Myself and on behalf of everybody in my team in the U.S. and those living in Russia under very difficult situation, too. I'm sure we're all hoping for peace in Ukraine soon.
Yes, 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 definitely. Natasha and I have a connection because my grandparents was considered Russia then, but is now part of Ukraine. So we have a connection. And she lived in New Jersey, and I still live in New Jersey. So that's a connection. And I want to thank everyone for listening. If you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, I urge you to subscribe. It is for free. I am on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, YouTube, to name a few. You don't want to miss my phenomenal guest that I have on that can help you have a better life. I have a variety of topics I cover, and I know Muppets in Moscow will inspire you. It's a very exciting book, and we take for granted so much in America, and what other countries don't have, and we complain about, I got to wait in line at the cashier, right? When people have to wait in line, like we did during the pandemic, well, people have to do that even when there isn't a pandemic. So be grateful, folks. Have a spirit of gratitude of what you do have. I had to learn that the hard way. And I just am very grateful for being a host on Pastor Will Talk Radio. Please read the blog. It will have information in it about Natasha Lance Rogoff, how you could get in touch with Natasha, where you could buy the book. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Pastor Will Talk Radio, for making this all possible. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, I am Betsy, Betsy, the letter E, Wurzel, Wurzel. And if you are a caregiver, or even if you're not, and you're looking for a support group, I have a support group. You're welcome to join. #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement on Facebook. And I just want to say that I always do at the end of my show, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind, shine your light bright, because if we all did that, it would be a much more kinder and brighter world. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Chat with you soon. Bye-bye.